Sanbonani, Dumelang, Molweni, good afternoon, goeiemiddag. It's good to be here in the streets of Johannesburg, but it's not because the streets of Johannesburg look good. The streets of Johannesburg have never looked as bad as they do today. But the reason why it's good to be here is because we're talking about the future of our city. And we're talking about the future of our city at a time in which Joburg residents are very concerned. Because since Herman Mashaba left the city of Johannesburg, the provincial chair is absolutely right. We have not had a mayor of the city since 2019. And the reason why we are here today is to be able to say to the people of Johannesburg that it has been done before and it can be done again. We don't have to accept things the way that they are. We can believe that things will get better, but ultimately the power must lie in our hands. We must be clear, though, that the reason why Johannesburg looks the way it does is because political parties have failed the people of Johannesburg. Coalitions led by the ANC, by the DA, by the EFF, by Al Jama and these other small parties have all failed. And the only mayor who has ever delivered properly in the city of Johannesburg is Herman Mashaba. But ultimately, we are here today to talk about his legacy, and as you can see, the sun is shining down today on Herman Mashaba's legacy. We are here outside the River Park Clinic on the outskirts of Alexandra to talk about the practical things that he did, because ActionSA, even as a young party, its leaders have a track record in government that no other young party has. We have leaders like Athol Trollip, who has turned around a place like Nelson Mandela Bay. We have leaders like Dr. Nasipi Moya, who is doing it right now in the city of Tshwane, and leaders like Herman Mashaba, who have done it in Johannesburg. And we need the message to ring out clear. We do not need to look far and wide for someone to fix Johannesburg. Herman Mashaba has done it before, and ActionSA can do it again. But let's talk about the real things that matter in the lives of people and not just political rhetoric. When Herman Mashaba became mayor of Johannesburg, he found a city that didn't care about its responsibilities. The previous mayor said, drug rehabilitation is not our problem. It's a problem of provincial and national government. But Herman Mashaba, because he loves his country, knew that drug rehabilitation is the problem of every South African. Because South Africans have this problem in their households across all backgrounds. The scourge of drugs has touched everyone, and he could not see a city any longer wash its hands of its responsibilities. It had to do something. So he launched the very first substance abuse facilities across multiple locations in Johannesburg. This one here in River Park, in Soweto, Eldorado Park, and in other communities. And already the impact of that was profound. I want to read to you the words of a resident of Joburg that Herman Mashaba spoke about in his 2018 State of the City address. He spoke about Mr. Amanam Tembu, who told us that his prayers were answered upon hearing the opening of the Clyde Drug Rehabilitation Center. His son Bongani had become afflicted with his addiction to drugs, and like so many experiences, he stole from his family in order to fund his habit. After being enrolled in the rehabilitation program at the Clyde Center, Bongani finally got the help he needed and started his road to recovery. And after graduating from the program, he enrolled again in school and put his life back on track. This is the kind of change that comes from the kind of political leadership that the people of Johannesburg need right now. But Herman Mashaba knew that the war against drugs does not need to be waged against the victims of this trade. They need treatment, and they need treatment at facilities behind us that we need to see more of across our city. And if you would like evidence of why Herman Mashaba is the only mayor to have succeeded in Johannesburg, ask yourself this. How many drug rehabilitation centers has the city of Johannesburg launched after Herman Mashaba left? 0. Not one. Because like so many of the things Herman Mashaba delivered as mayor, progress stopped when Herman left. And this is why we need ActionSA back in government.
Yes.
But Herman knew that while we need to care for the victims of the drug trade, we needed to wage a war on the real criminals, the drug dealers, the drug distributors, and the manufacturers of this trade. And that is why he achieved the biggest expansion of the JMPD in the history of the city of Johannesburg. He launched the very first K9 narcotics unit in the history of the city that specialized in going after the dealers of drugs. In his State of the City address in 2019, Herman Mashaba reported that this K9 unit had achieved 1,193 arrests of drug dealers. He announced that it had seized 123 illegal firearms and 136 kilograms of drugs that had been seized, as well as 1,000 hijacked vehicles. Because the war against drugs must be waged by those who deal in them and not those who are afflicted by this trade. But it is also important to know that Herman Mashaba's legacy goes beyond just the issue of substance abuse facilities. And that is why every week between now and the election, we will go to different sites that speak to his legacy as mayor. And there will not even be enough weeks between now and the election for us to cover them all. When Herman Mashaba left as mayor of Johannesburg, he had the highest approval rating in the history of the city at 74%. He had redirected 2 billion rand from the luxuries of government on international travel and conferences and consultants and redirected it to the service delivery priorities. He reduced the number of power outages in the city because he invested in the electricity infrastructure. He reduced the number of bursts and water leaks in the city so that the water ran when the taps were turned on. He achieved 17 billion rand in facilitated investment in his final year in office, 4 times the record that it ever achieved before. He resurfaced 900 kilometers of roads, of 4,000 of the bad kilometers of roads in bad condition. And imagine if he had served longer, where Johannesburg roads would be today. He built the largest electricity substation in the southern hemisphere at the time, and it was built within budget and within schedule. He extended the operating hours of 27 clinics, including this one behind us. You can see it operates over weekends. That saved the lives of 500 people who would never have gotten to emergency trauma care in time. He started mobile clinics to service communities that are far removed from the hospitals and clinics that need to provide that care. He rolled out 7,000 RDP homes, 7,500 title deeds, and 3,500 service stands, because he also knew you cannot roll out 2,000 RDP houses a year to address a housing backlog as big as we have in Johannesburg. We need creative ways of addressing the housing backlog, like the Inner City Project, which was willing to put 180 something buildings to the private sector to build affordable accommodation closer to places of work. He insourced 6,000 security guards and cleaners and removed them from the abusive tenderpreneurs of the ANC so that they could get a decent living wage. And you know, when we came here today, one of the first things is the security guards come to us and they thank us for what Herman Mashaba did when he was mayor, because it touched the lives of people in a very meaningful way. And he established an anti-corruption unit that investigated over 6,000 cases of fraud, corruption and maladministration, totaling more than 35 billion rand and achieving more than 900 arrests. And let us speak to a moment to the NDPP, the head of our NPA, Shamila Batohi, for her shocking performance in Parliament yesterday, where she could stand in front of the South African people and say, please ask Herman Mashaba to send me these cases. And our Member of Parliament had to say, but advocate, we have been sending you these cases since 2018 and 2019 and you've done nothing about it. And that is why the NPA is in the state that it is in, because it has no leadership and she remains toothless to deal with the political efforts to neuter the NPA. We will never win the fight against drug dealers as long as we have an NPA that is unwilling to wage war against the criminals of our country. But as I say, we will be here week in and week out, all the way to the election campaign, so that we can tell stories like we've told today. Because the South African people are tired of politics. They're tired of political parties talking about other political parties. They want to hear what can be done to improve their lives. And there's no better answer we can give than say, Herman Mashaba did it before in Johannesburg, and ActionSA can do it again now. Thank you very much.